It's okay. We're only like 15 minutes late. Nobody will notice.
Stream.
Is that going to be part of the new song?
Yeah, instead of Bill Nye, it's
Stream. An AKA Shock Wazir on the Rooster Teeth website.
I am Alex, aka Chaos Black 21.
Are you sure?
I'm Malachi, a.k.a. Suki Kiba.
And I'm Joseph, a.k.a. J. Dunlap.
And welcome to our live stream. How's everybody today? How are you, Alex?
I am great, other than being super busy.
Why are you so busy, man?
Well, because of the holidays this past weekend, and then work, and D&D, and this, and it's a little stressful right now.
How are you, Joseph?
How am I?
Yeah.
You want to open that can?
I do. I'm open.
Think of me, but like times like 10 for him.
I opened this can of worms. Now I have to lie in it.
I think that was an age joke. I'm not sure, though.
Maybe.
The one that Alex said, times 10.
I was talking about like the stress.
Yeah, I mean, we could go into that, or we could where we stop. Actually, I had a decent day today. If anyone, either in the co-host area of things or anyone that's not watching right now, knows what Kahoot is, it's a website not unlike the Jackbox sort of, which is there's less, and you do it game show style, kind of like B-Dubs trivia, but you make the quiz. And it became a thing with my freshman students who were like, let's do Kahoot. I'm like, what's Kahoot? So we do it usually on Mondays so they can study for a quiz that happens usually on Wednesday. And then eventually that material makes its way onto the exam. And just like B-Dubs, you get extra points for answering it quickly. And their names are getting more and more inappropriate, the names that they're choosing.
They're getting comfortable, Joseph.
So today we started off by having an actual legit quiz, mostly because I wanted to punish the student who's always late.
Okay.
Then we took care of an in-class assignment that we gradually do where they write down certain types of chords for me. And we got to diminished triads today. And then I set up a Kahoot, and we played Kahoot for the last part of the class. And also there's sort of a running joke that's been going on with Kahoot answers ever since I let a student write a Kahoot, which is constantly strings of don't, not, isn't, not, it doesn't. And for context, it's because there's a rule in music that unless you're like doubling instruments, you don't double the middle part of a chord called the third. Well, I let the students write the quiz one time, the three advanced students, and one of them had a answer that said, don't not double the third.
Don't not double the third.
So I just started doing that with a lot of random throwaway answers, like don't not, isn't, doesn't, don't. At one point, I think I chose this is fine as an answer. I chose the tenor sing loudly as a possible answer. So that happened, and then I was in my office for a bit, had a rehearsal, and then exam retakes were the sophomore class. So about 4 people showed up, 5 people, and retook exams from last week. And then went to lunch with Gina, had Mexican food, came back, did class piano, took a dump, came back.
Well,
A very critical piece of information.
Well, okay, there's this running joke in class piano, which is the freshmen, where on Monday I got to class and one of them said, such and such is going to be late. He's taking care of something. And I said, I hope he wipes. So he gets back and I say, did you wipe? And he's like, you weren't supposed to tell him. She was like, I didn't. He guessed. So today I was like, I need to go take care of something. And they were like, I hope you wipe.
I mean, it means a completely different thing depending on the context.
Yes, I got back and they were like, did you wipe? And I said, for all you know, I was playing video games in my office.
I mean, it's true.
There was one time when I made a post on the Facebook group for our classes saying there was a particular morning we weren't actually having class. They were just supposed to come in my office and ask for help on homework. And I said, I will be in my office all morning playing I will be in my office all morning in case you need help. That's what I typed. And that's what they brought it up. They were like, well, I mean, you could have been playing video games. We know that's what you do in your office.
That's what I do.
Right? That's what you do? You play video games in my office?
In your office, yes.
So also, speaking of me, because that's a pretty important topic, I traveled 4 weekends in a row. So we talked about that a little bit last week, but the last of that stretch was on Saturday. I drove Friday afternoon to Oklahoma City, hung out at the game store over there with a few judges, stayed the night at a judge's house who works at Channel Fireball, and then went to the conference, which was a really good conference, and then drove the 5-hour trip home, which was all kinds of fun, I'm here to tell you. And then this weekend, I actually am not going anywhere, which is nice, because the next weekend I'm going to Huntsville, Texas.
It's a lot of traveling, dude.
One
It is.
weekend off, and then you're back on the road again.
Yeah. Imagine what it's like if you're a professional, like level 3 judge who gets paid to travel.
I mean, if you get paid to travel, that's awesome.
So it's sort of a thing. I'm going to compare it to universities where they really want to have as many doctorates as possible for the ratio of doctorates to students, that they'll pay them a lot more. Well, for level 3s, if there's an event that really just needs some more L3s, they'll actually pay for your travel. So that's pretty nice. I know a level 2 who's basically a level 3 who lives in Chicago, who will post on his Facebook, I'm finally home for a week.
Me too.
So that's what's going on with me. What about you, Tristan?
For me, well, last week was Anime Boston. I went and attended that with my friend Sam, which is obviously in Boston. We put together an outfit for an anime character, which we did minimal work. We basically got ourselves very nice suits. We made up some portions of it to imitate some features of the character. And the nice thing was that we were recognized frequently throughout the weekend, and actually had about 50 different people asking for photos. So it was pretty nice. It's nice, it's fun to see people get excited for the character, and it's just nice to be recognized. So it was a nice little ego boost, and it made people happy. So we had a good time.
What's the character?
We portrayed an anthropomorphized, very dapper, like full suit scarf. He kind of looked a bit mafia, honestly, which isn't really that far off for a character named Kyubey from the anime Puella Magi Madoka Magica.
All right, cool.
So the only thing we were missing was a solid, solid looking leather briefcase full of contracts. If we'd had that, then it would have been complete. But I didn't go find a briefcase in time. They're expensive.
That could be something in the future, maybe that you look into, like maybe trying to make your own or something.
Well, we'll make it a contract.
It should say wish contracts on the case.
Wish contracts. I'm gonna get like a nice briefcase, because I'll be able to use that for other things too.
There you go. And I believe you have another thing coming up.
Yeah, this Saturday I'm going to one day of PAX East. And Sam wants to use the costume again, so we'll be doing that again, only at a different location this time, because PAX East takes place at the BCEC, Boston Convention Exhibition Center. The other one took place at the Heinz Convention Center.
Boston has that many convention centers?
It's got a lot of places that you can have large gatherings. That's just 2 of them.
All right, Malachi.
Oh, well, for me, I just celebrated Easter with the family. And my friend Ryan came up from New Jersey, hung out with him on Saturday. And Sunday before I went to Easter, woke up to head over there and look through my rear window. And it looked like there was ice on my rear window. And I was like, it didn't get that cold out. Why is there ice on my rear window? And then I started to hear crunching noises. And that's when I was like, son of a bleep. My car rear window apparently had a stick fall from a tree that I was parked under and shatter the back window.
Must have been some stick.
It was really windy Saturday. It's really windy today. Like, there's a wind advisory for today. And yeah, it was only like maybe an inch in diameter and only maybe 2 feet long. It was pathetic for breaking my back window. But the car is fixed. I am happy that it's not busted anymore. And that really was all my weekend. It was just my friend coming up in Easter and my car getting attacked by a tree.
Tree attack.
I don't think I angered the tree guy.
So it got attacked by an ent?
Yeah, I don't know why I pissed the ent off. It's just like your car. I don't like it.
He didn't hang around and listen to all of Fangorn's story.
Apparently. So that was the extent of my recent activities. I'm playing Monster Hunter on occasions.
There it is. I'm like, he's got to say something about Monster Hunter.
Just for you, Alex.
Thanks, Mal. I know it's just for me. You wouldn't say it otherwise.
Wonderful.
Yeah. if anybody hasn't noticed, we didn't actually come up with a topic list.
Who needs a topic list? Us.
How many days?
We need a topic list.
How many days is it till RTX?
139. Didn't you tell me it was like 140 yesterday?
I said that we have 4 months, so it'd be about like 120 something.
Cool.
Because it's August 3rd through 5th, and we're April 4th right now.
It's counting down.
So give or take a few days, because some months have 31.
Oh, it's going to be my birthday in 24 days.
Happy
So
birthday.
speaking of numbers and days,
Yeah, we're talking about numbers and days.
happy birthday, Malachi.
What?
Birthday in a month, Malachi. Yes, I set up this trap on purpose. Yay me.
Oh, geez.
Oh, geesh, indeed. So what did you guys do yesterday? I mean, that's the next thing I can think of.
I mean, 3 of us were in a D&D campaign.
That's why I said it. Tristan likes to throw gooey zombies at us.
I do like to throw gooey zombies at you because you're fighting a necromancer. That's what is that correct? Joseph, do necromancers do things other than zombies?
Do they do zombies?
They sometimes.
They try to everything comes back to zombies. So it's gonna say like maybe they like kill someone so they can bring them back as a zombie, but it just comes back to zombies. Everything is zombies.
Everything is zombies. So
if you look at the flow chart, the arrow always goes back to zombies.
Tristan makes them pop like zits and throw up on people. It's terrible.
only a couple.
Have you ever been pinned by a zombie and have it throw up in your mouth? It's not a good feeling.
Wow, I don't think anybody in the party's had that happen yet.
Yeah, I don't remember that happening last night.
I know, but it's something that would be terrible.
I mean, one guy did start vomiting all over the place, but I had to heal him. It was a little disgusting.
Speaking of vomiting, a lot of anime lately has been using like rainbows when people throw up. It's actually kind of amusing.
A lot of things seem to use rainbows. I never look at a rainbow the same way now.
Was it a double rainbow?
All the way across the sky, man.
Oh, double.
So, yeah. So they finally got into the fortress where the necromancer is supposedly holed up with his army of zombies and started fighting their way through the army of zombies. And the whole time they're moving through, they can hear this ominous chanting emanating from the walls. And they did like a 4-hour session of fighting their way through this dungeon. They decided to go cut straight across from the front entrance to the back wall because they didn't, they could barely see because it was pitch black inside. They had limited distance they could see, so they wanted to just carefully feel their way around to try and find where they need to go because they're not exactly certain what they're looking for. And so after 4 hours of that, fighting zombies and trying to figure their way around, at the end of the session, one of them goes, "So my spells are..." when we headed in there, I had 5 and 6 hours left of my spells. I need to know how long we spent in there so that I can, remove the proper amount of time. I said, well, as soon as you entered the place, because they were alerted, I told you we were doing this in combat turns. So 9 combat turns is less than a minute. The whole 4-hour session covered less than a minute.
Yeah, I can't wrap my mind around that.
They basically charged in and started decapitating zombies just left and right.
Yeah, it feels so slow, but then it's just like, yeah, you literally just stormed in and just was like, slice, slice, slice.
Well, isn't that like a concept? The whole rushing of adrenaline?
Yeah.
It seems like time is slowed down.
Time is distorted. It felt like it took hours, yeah, but it was only a minute. Riken kept shouting and attracting more zombies from farther away.
He did not keep shouting. He whisper shouted that one time.
Your whispers
You keep saying that.
are like not whispers.
Riken has a very skewed concept of what a whisper is.
I wonder what an actual whisper is for Riken.
Just his regular talking voice.
Yeah,
Probably.
I am whispering. This is me talking.
Keep your voice down. Yeah, I am keeping my voice down. If I wasn't keeping my voice, it would be like this.
So he's an interesting character. The new rule among the party is don't wake up, Riken, if anything's going on, and you want to figure it out before rushing into combat, because he will start shouting as soon as he wakes up.
Pretty much. I mean, it depends. If you...
It depends on what. Like the 3 times you've been woken up, you started shouting.
That's because when he's woken up, it's like abrupt and he is startled, so he has to like start yelling. But if he just wakes up normally, then he's fine. He doesn't yell.
Yeah, I was talking about being woken up. I wasn't talking about waking up normally.
Listen, I can't help what he does. That's just him.
I can't help what my character does. I also can't help what my character's pet does.
My character has a mind of its own. And Kubriel definitely has a mind of her own because she's controlled by the voice of this guy.
I mean, she's willful.
So is every other familiar and steed that you make.
I don't know what you're talking about. Chestnut was the best horse ever.
And now he's gone.
Probably for the best. Because now someone else can benefit from the amazingness that is Chestnut. So yeah, that was yesterday. The D&D session progresses well.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting once we get to the Necromancer.
Oh, it'll be fun. It'll be great.
Oh, yeah, no.
It'll be a good time.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
You're going to be best friends.
For you, maybe.
Oh, yeah.
Anyways. So I can mention 2 things that's coming up that's a mildly big deal. Avengers Infinity War is coming up.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Lots of movies.
Is this going to be a movie that we actually all watch and record a spoiler cast on?
Like all those other times we did that?
I'm watching it opening night. So
all that other time?
If you guys buy your tickets ahead of time, watch it opening night. I am.
I'm not going to watch it opening night. I don't like to go when the movie theater's packed.
Sometimes it's fun. I actually really, I had a lot of fun when Lord of the Rings on opening night. You remember when Aragorn's, I forget what orc type they were, the ones that used the white handprints on their heads in Fellowship?
Yeah.
Well, you remember when he...
Wait,
it was the white. It was the white hand of Saruman.
God.
Yeah, it's not. Aragorn.
I thought you were talking about Aragorn. So you're talking about...
He's talking about Fellowship of the Ring.
About the Uruk-hai.
Yeah, the Uruk-hai, yeah. Well, no, you know when he was running the one through and it like pushed the sword in deeper and roared at him, then he pulled the sword out of his chest and cut off his head. Someone in the theater, someone in the theater screamed, "Yeah!" and the whole theater busted up laughing.
Yeah, that's why I hate watching movies in theaters.
It was everyone was really quiet during the movie. There was only that one quick outburst, it was funny because that's all it was, and then everyone instantly quieted afterwards. So that was a good experience at a theater when it was packed at opening night. It's fun when there's something reasonable happen. But I plan to go opening night for Avengers.
Yeah,
you know what comes out a week before Avengers?
Negative. Forgot.
Deadpool 2.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. That's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I'm going to probably watch that opening night too.
It's a little weird. It was such a long process of publicity for Deadpool. Deadpool 2 is just sort of like, here's a trailer, it's coming out in a few months.
Well, because the first one they had to hype it up because like it was hard to get that movie going, wasn't it?
It was only hard to get that movie going because the
Had to be rated R.
executives weren't sure it was a good idea until Ryan Reynolds friggin' just went on a tear and finally got it to go.
Yeah, because we've already discussed
all the fans wanted it.
Well, it also took someone leaking the test footage that ended up being the opening sequence, and it took the emails
Ryan Reynolds
from Sony, maybe, and then it took the Sony email hack for us to know that they'd been talking about it, and we're like, why aren't you doing this? Do it!
Yeah, so
what be taking so long?
So since it has a good name now, they just feel like all we have to do is tell people they'll come.
I mean, it's Ryan Reynolds. I will.
Yeah. Ryan Reynolds cosplaying as a testicle.
You're
With
looking
a
at
picture of with a picture on his face of Wolverine.
Wolverine. Rhymes with Wolverine.
Yeah. Deadpool and Wolverine have a great relationship. They do. Trust me.
Two good movies that are coming out that people should watch, and I'm going to watch. And another thing that's coming out that I'm really excited for because I do enjoy the story and its concept. My Hero Academia Season 3 is going to be coming out this upcoming... actually, it's coming out in 11 days. It's going to be great. I really enjoy My Hero.
Indeed.
So that, for anyone who doesn't know what it is an anime.
They're going to be doing a second season of Furikuri as well.
That freaking freaked me out. I was like, what? It's been so long.
Maybe it was an April Fool's joke. I don't know.
It might be an April Fool's joke. I could believe that because it was around that time.
I actually haven't looked into it very much. I was not sure what story they'd tell if they
I don't know if they could top it though, because it was so short and sweet, you know? It was probably an April Fool's joke, but if it wasn't, it's hard to top those 6 episodes of greatness. Was it 6?
Indeed.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes,
6.
6 episodes.
That's it. Very short. Good series.
So lots of fun things coming up.
Speaking of episodes and series, we've got Westworld Season 2 coming up very soon on HBO.
I haven't watched any of it.
More Western android sci-fi.
Yeah, so Academy on YouTube, really talking about Westworld. So they have a psychiatrist in a recent episode because they talk about the Freudian of sort of viewing yourself as a protector and viewing other people as especially adversaries. So it's a dehumanizing aspect. And they get into the concept of Westworld, where the people view themselves as the important ones and they view the androids as the others. And the story sort of starts off as treating them that way. But as it progresses, they become the center and the humans become the others. And the interesting idea behind season 2, we're starting androids having taken over their world. I'm very interested to see what happens because there's still some people around, such as the old guy who wanted to find the end, if you will, almost like the Ready Player One sort of end. He was convinced there was an end game. He's still there. And that the idea of the androids taking over and being in danger is just one more aspect, which is now you get it's actually being in danger if you're into that. That was an interesting theory. So as I'm watching season 2, I'll be telling you guys about it. Has anyone been watching Jessica Jones season 2?
Nope.
I haven't.
I'm so far behind on the Netflix Marvel series.
The only things I have is I haven't finished Jessica Jones 2 and I haven't finished The Punisher. And they're good watches because I would say the weakest one by far is Iron Fist. I didn't poop on it as Twitter did. I just, I watched it. I was like, oh, okay. That was my reaction. And then the New York Avengers, there was the Defenders. And I suppose it sort of when we didn't think were necessary. But it was a thing that happened. I really recommend The Punisher. Even someone who is turned off by the Marvel Netflix stuff, The Punisher is really a very good show.
And it stars the
It would stand if it wasn't a Marvel show.
Dead.
Yes, he does a great job. So what else is going on with you guys? Anything else you're excited about?
Well, I wanted to be excited about Ready Player One, but I'm not sure. I think that if I go to view it, I'm going to have to watch it as though I'd never read the book because they're trying to get across the same message, the idea of intellectual property ownership and then the whole freedom of the internet thing, which is very much what the book was all about. It was basically a big argument in favor of net neutrality, but it was also, like, the book itself was also an homage to the late 70s through the 80s in just pop culture, music, and gaming. Like, every single scene included reference upon reference ad nauseum to that time period. And so, and the book basically said, look, if you were born in that time or grew up with this stuff, you're going to have a great nostalgia trip reading this book, and you're going to get a good story. If you're not from that time, you're either going to not get these things, or you're going to get a cool window into what life was like back then, but too bad. And then with the movie, they said, no, we need to be more inclusive with our audience. So they basically completely changed the whole story, took out tons of the references to that time period, completely changed the challenges and the puzzles, to the point that, like, the book predicates itself on these verbal riddles, these written sonnets and limericks. They call them the limerick. You know, the first one was called the limerick, and it was a word game where the character had to figure out what was meant, and the exact wording was very important. Like, each one, there were 3 of them, and each one he had to pry it apart and try and figure out what was meant, what was he referencing with each individual word in the puzzle. And so the exact wording was something you became familiar with as a reader. And then in one of the TV spots, one of the advertisements, you hear him reciting the limerick, the first riddle given to them by Halliday. And it's 100% different from what was in the book. Like, not a single word was the same. And it had a completely different meaning. It's like, okay. So it's just, I can't look at it through the lens of somebody who read the book, because it's not trying to stay true to the book as the story that the book told. It's probably trying to stay true to the messaging, but everything else has been updated to flow better with the audience, I guess, which is just odd to me, because the book is set in, like, 2100 something where all this other stuff has happened. Like, the idea is that the world kept moving forward and new media kept coming out, and people's avatars within the Oasis go to match that. They're not all locked in the 70s and 80s, but the world itself has a lot of influences from the 70s and 80s, but even more than that, because the Oasis itself was constantly updating. It was just that the puzzle was based around the 70s and 80s, because that's what the guy who made it, that's what he grew up with. That's what he thought of as the ideal time period for gaming. James Halliday, the fictional character, he idealized the 70s and 80s. So the only way to solve the riddles, find the Easter egg, win the game, take the prize, was to know everything about the 70s and 80s, know as much as Halliday did. And so that was the idea, that even though they're in a future world where media has progressed and everything is not centered around the 70s and 80s, the only way to win this game was to know everything about the 70s and 80s. So they're clearly stepping away from that.
So the puzzles were based off of the actual the time period itself, because the movie, yeah. I did go and watch it, and I did enjoy the movie. It wasn't like blow my mind, amazing, epic, but it was fun and enjoyable. And I would say, personally, for me, easily worth one watch. But to what I noticed of the puzzles, they're more focused around Halliday himself.
Well, it was always focused around what Halliday knew or thought or said or liked. That was always the thing.
Okay.
It's just like the first puzzle in the book was, if you want to, stand among champions, you have a lot to learn. And so the hint in that was that the first key that you needed to find was on the school planet, Ludin, which is where the main character was basically trapped, because he didn't have the in-game funds to travel anywhere else, because the Oasis is simultaneously a video gaming system and literally everything else about society: school, business, stock exchange, everything happens in there. It's the Matrix. And so everybody gets a free copy of the Oasis, a free VR rig, so that they can access it, and kids can go to school in the Oasis rather than going to real schools. So he only had access to the school planet, and that's where he realizes the first key is on his school planet. So that was the first riddle. They changed that riddle, and then he goes and finds it in the book. He goes and finds it, and it's the Tomb of Horrors from Dungeons and Dragons, because Halliday loved Dungeons and Dragons. And at the end of it, you're supposed to fight this lich, but he had done some reading about how the lich can be appeased if you treat him formally, and he won't kill you right away. So he tries doing that because he studied the module. And instead, the lich challenges him to an arcade game, Joust. And you have to beat the lich at Joust. Like, that was the whole first segment. That's the whole first challenge in the book. And instead, I think in the movie, they changed it into a race.
No, you are correct. It is a race. And also, he wasn't, like, one thing they also, I think they did it for time constraint, for fitting in what they wanted to tell as the story. Because the main character was already established in the Oasis. He could freely move around. He had the stuff he needed. He wasn't like loaded or had a lot of funds for everything, but he did have a little bit of a foothold.
That's weird. I mean, that's just odd for me to change, because he very quickly became affluent like that in the book, because basically Halliday dies, puts out this challenge. After he dies, it gets automatically put out to the world. People spend 10 years trying to find the Easter egg. Nobody figures it out. This kid comes along 10 years later. He spent the last 8 years of his life studying this guy, figures out the first challenge, and he becomes the first name on a live updating scoreboard on a website that everyone in the world can see.
Yes, that's all.
So he immediately gets propositioned by all these advertisers and everything, and so he makes a ton of money off of advertising by selling rights to his image. And so that's how he starts getting around to solve the rest of the puzzles. Yeah. But before that, he was a nobody.
Yeah, so he was participating basically. It was more, to me in the movie, seemed more of like a time skip in the beginning. They left all that beginning part out and just started up with them starting the first challenge. Like in the movie, this first challenge was already discovered, and the whole beginning of the movie was them filling you in on what's going on.
Okay, well, in the book, the second challenge was literally to act your way through the movie War Game. No, not War Game. Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Something like that. I can't remember.
Completely different.
I'm intrigued.
There were like two movies that he had to act his way through, and the program would score him based on how well he played the role he'd been assigned. And he's basically first personing into a movie, and he has to remember the lines, and he has to do the actions.
Did the story in the book talk about a lot of the outside world and do a lot of storytelling of just the outside?
About 3 scenes, but it was important. The fact that the whole world is geared toward powering the Oasis. Outside of major cities, the world's pretty shithole-ish. And the fact that he lived in a big trailer park, and IOI goes and blows up his trailer stack because they want him dead.
That's all true.
Yeah, I figured that would still be true. But after that, he moved straight into Chicago. I think it was Chicago, where the Oasis main server was, and he used all that multi-millions of credits, because credits inside the game were equivalent to dollars outside. You could buy anything real or in the game with those same credits. They were transferable back and forth.
Okay, I think in the movie they added another element to the story that I don't think might be in the book, to utilize more of the outside world. So I think that's one of the big contributors to why they changed maybe the challenges as much as they did, and also probably to incorporate maybe more of the different pop culture that they wanted to show off.
Maybe. Before finishing the third challenge in the book, he actually goes physically to IOI's headquarters, and there's several scenes where he's on the streets. He meets up with H and the others, and then they travel to Ogg's house by helicopter, I think. Private jet, something like that. Private jet, that's what it was.
Yeah, so the movie is actually quite to what you're describing makes it seem like it's extremely different. So
Yeah, seems that way.
I would recommend Tristan just watching it as something that is within
not based on the book.
Yeah, that's based on the universe, but not really canon.
Yeah. It's
reminds me of a different movie that I absolutely hated because they went completely from the book.
What, Maze Runner? What?
Is that really different too? Because I only know the
first
movie.
one. The first movie called The Maze Runner there's different parts, or there's differences between that and the book.
What's his name? Han Solo? I forget the actor's name offhand.
But Scorched Trials, the second movie based off of the second book, is nothing like the book and is just Scorched Trials in name.
Yeah.
Oh, whoops!
I've been told.
I was thinking Blade Runner, not Maze Runner.
Nice, Malachi.
Whoops! Yes. I know what you're talking about now.
Okay. I've been told that the author for Ready Player One had a lot of creative control over the movie, so supposedly it should tell a good story even if it's not the same one in the book.
I could agree to that.
So, like Douglas Adams being one of the producers for Hitchhiker's Guide.
Is Douglas Adams even still alive? Pretty sure he's not.
He's not. He was when they made the movie.
Wow, okay. I thought he was dead even before that. I think he died young.
If I recall,
he didn't even get to 50.
I was just going to point out what that one movie that was based off a book and didn't change anything. None of them.
Harry Potter?
No, no movie based on a book doesn't change anything.
No, that's true. Because they're trying to take a written media form which has as long as it wants to tell a story and condense it into a smaller form, and you have 180 minutes to do that because that's the attention span of a normal human. So you have to either tell the whole story in that time or let people know you're breaking up into multiple movies. And I never heard anything about there being sequels to the Ready Player One film, so that means they had to take this whole book, which is not a long book. It's not. But there is a lot of content in it. A lot of stuff happens. A lot of minutia. And they're trying to condense it into a single movie. I knew that they were going to have to change things, but I'm surprised that they changed some of the elements that they did because they were sort of core to what the book's story was. Now, I admit it that watching somebody play Joust against the Demi-Lich at the end of the Tomb of Horrors would not be very exciting on screen. The fact that they changed it to just a drag race or whatever, like a NASCAR race, is a little odd to me. I thought they'd find maybe some better analog.
What's the game that I have that it's more it's not just a drag race, it's more of an obstacle course kind of thing in cars.
People like cars.
Yes. Or weird
not vehicles. As much as like grapes.
People like grapes.
Do you know the game Split Second?
Sounds familiar. It's about racing, right?
Well, yeah, pretty much what it is just you're racing down a track, and as you're doing so, the environment is against you. Traps pop up, buildings crash down. Outside elements are basically trying to wreck you, and that's what the first one is. But they actually don't do the race in one scene. It's done several times. Well, I should say twice. But anyways, I'm going to stop talking. I'm getting on the edge of spoilers.
I would say read the book, because the book is really good. The book is really good, and I'm not an expert on the 70s or 80s, but I was still able to figure out 2 out of 3 puzzles before they gave away the answers. The only one I couldn't figure out was the one that was so obscure I don't know how you would figure it out without having lived that one game that they were referencing, because I'd never heard of it until he's like, oh, this was the answer. I'm like, what is that? He had to explain what the game was. He's like, yeah, this was on the Atari 2600. I'm like, I never played on the Atari 2600.
You were just a baby when that was phasing out.
I think it was phased out even before that, but yeah. I mean, the book itself really did revolve around knowledge and enjoyment of the games that were Commodore 64 and Atari 2600 up through, like, D&D. They didn't really get beyond I don't think they even mentioned like the Nintendo Entertainment System or anything like that. They talked about those early computers, because the Commodore 64 was really more of a computer than a gaming system. That's what it focused on. It focused on the bands. There was a lot of There was a reference. One of the puzzles was a reference to Rush, one of their unreleased albums. That one I actually picked up on. I was proud of myself because I know nothing about music. It was basically one long homage to that time period, and it was fascinating. It was fun. There was some nostalgia in it for me for the parts that I recognized. There was a window into the past for the stuff that I didn't recognize but got to learn about via the book. And the reader that they got for it, because I love audiobooks, so I got it in audiobook form, was really good.
Speaking of audiobooks, I think it was my sister gave me some files of an audiobook, and it was How to Train Your Dragon read by David Tennant. And it was okay, only it was really weird, because speaking of adaptations of books, How to Train Your Dragon the movie is nothing like How to Train Your Dragon the book, to where it bothered me and I didn't want to hear the book. Like it has the same characters, but the entire plot is completely different. And I'm just like, no, that's not right. I don't like this. So I stopped listening to it after like 2 chapters.
So you had kind of a reverse effect. Instead of reading the book first and not wanting to watch the movie, you watch the movies and not want to read the book.
Yeah. I mean, that's natural.
Yeah, I think I should give it another try, because How to Train Your Dragon, the movie, was very well made. But it was a by the books, he likes the enemy, we don't like him, oh wait, he's a good guy sort of story. It's just a by the books Romeo and Juliet adaptation, and we have a lot of those movies. Like, the plot's pretty predictable. Not as predictable as Big Hero 6, but still predictable. So I'm willing to give the book another try, just to see what the story's actually about, what the message actually is. Because the message of How to Train Your Dragon in the movie is, not rushing to judgment and not just taking everything at face value. So I'm curious what the message is of the book. I feel like we're at wrap-up point. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I'm happy with that. I think that my closing thought would just be, say, in a similar vein, I've recently been listening through the Lord of the Rings, because it was years and years and years and years ago that I read those, and I ever actually finished The Return of the King. So I am now about 3/4 of the way through The Return of the King, after having listened through the first 2, Fellowship and Two Towers. And I will say this: I agree when my friends say the Lord of the Rings books are very important books. They are the establishing moment for the genre of medieval stasis fantasy. It is the reason we have Dungeons and Dragons, and it set the stage for today's fantasy genre. I will also say that I agree when they say Tolkien is a terrible writer. He sucks. He is a very bad writer. I will say beyond that, he is incredible at his description of scenery. He is really great at painting with every color in his imaginary brush the setting and what is going on, what the trees look like, the rivers, how the land flows, and what mountains rise, and sky and clouds, and it's beautiful. He's an amazing wordsmith when it comes to setting. He is terrible at plots, and he is terrible at pacing, and The Fellowship of the Ring was horrifyingly... I never felt like the hobbits were the main characters in the Fellowship of the Ring, and yet we were forced to continuously follow them throughout, while things happened to them, and they waited for people to save them. And that's not what you want for protagonists. So that just, it kind of gives over to the whole, he was not good. But
I'm actually going to make a challenge to our listeners to give some thought to Tristan's closing thoughts about The Lord of the Rings as a book, and give us your thoughts on that on social media or YouTube, because I have some thoughts I want to contribute to the conversation, but they can wait until next week now that we're at time.
All right, I'm done
for the episode. That could be a great open conversation or closing conversation for next week. Thoughts we get from our listeners.
Tolkien sucks. Change my mind.
Tolkien sucks. Change my mind. God, that freaking meme going around.
Malachi, what's the time for?
It's time to get the flip out of here.
Say it like Napoleon Dynamite.
It's time to get the flip out of here.
Time to get the flip out of here.
Good night, everybody.
Hashtag get the flip.
Hashtag get the flip. Hashtag do a barrel roll. Hashtag goodbye.
Goodbye.
I found the magic one.